Hello, and welcome back to In the Hot Seat with Emily Diala and Dr. Viviana Coles. I'm Emily, and this is Dr. Coles, and we are excited that you're joining us back today. In case you missed our previous episodes, be sure to scroll back through our YouTube pages so that you can see the other segments for yourself. And to catch you up to speed, right now we are in a series on sexual pleasure and satisfaction. So today we are going to be focusing primarily on the big O. That means orgasm. So I think that, at least in my clinical experience, this is one of the areas that is probably the most shrouded in myth and unreasonable expectations. Would you agree?
Unreasonable is exactly the word that I would
Yes.
use. I wouldn't say necessarily irrational, but unreasonable for sure.
Yes.
Between men and women, the idea that orgasm is the gold standard
Right.
of what a sexual experience should be about, I think it's the thing that trips them up the most.
It absolutely does. It becomes like this dangling carrot that you're always running towards. And the thing is, if you make sex goal-oriented, if it's all about getting an orgasm or having the perfect erection, you lose touch with sex as a sensual and erotic experience that is so much more than an orgasm.
It's an interaction that can happen beginning after your last sexual experience. It's
Right.
something that kind of encompasses everything that you do, the way that you speak to one another,
Yes.
the way that you touch one another, the way that you take each other into consideration on a daily basis. And if you're only seeking out that orgasm, you're missing out on so much of the other bonding parts of it.
Exactly. And, one question, I notice this the most when I work with couples who maybe they have gone through like a prostate cancer and they're having some sexual difficulties as a result of something that's obviously medical. And they're missing the things that brought them pleasure sexually, but they always think it's the erection or the orgasm. But when I start to ask them questions about what about sex is most satisfying or pleasurable to you, rarely do I hear orgasm. I mean, almost nobody says that. And so for a lot of people, it's important to remember that it's about the feeling of connection that you have. It's about the escape. It's about the playfulness. It's about the feeling of expressing love. All of those things are very pleasurable to us.
And sprinkle an orgasm here or there, and you got a really good recipe for connection and satisfying sexual experiences.
Right. Now, not to minimize the power of an orgasm. I mean, it's something that can feel really good. And I can understand why people would want that to be a part of their sexual experience a little bit. So let's talk some about the differences between the male and the female orgasm, because I think that's something that there are some misconceptions about.
So when it comes to female orgasm, there are studies that show that women experience the peak of pleasure right before the actual orgasm happens physically. So a lot of women will think about it and wonder if they experience that the next time they're in the bedroom.
Right.
But for a lot of women, it's that buildup. It's the intensity right before. And then pleasure actually drops off right at orgasm.
The other statistic I think is important to keep in mind, because a lot of women feel like there's something wrong with them if they're not having an orgasm through intercourse alone. So the fact is that only, and the stats vary a little bit here, but only about 30% of women,
Or up to 30%.
up to 30% of women can have an orgasm through penetrative sex. And that means no clitoral stimulation. And of that 30%, there's even a smaller percentage who can rely on that consistently to have an orgasm.
So I want men to rewind and listen to that
Please.
again.
And again.
Because it's very important that you realize that you might be trying to seek out something at every sexual experience that just isn't going to happen.
Right.
And we don't want you to be disappointed, and we don't want you to cast off all the other parts of the sexual experience that can really help to bond you, and that your partner, if she's a woman, is really looking forward to.
Exactly.
And it can really put a damper on the whole situation.
Yeah, if she feels pressured by you.
Or
that's
if your
like a
bodies
sexual
don't
turn
work
on.
exactly how you were hoping to,
Right.
as a male or a female, it's really important to take a look at the entire experience and look for those feelings of connection and of pleasure, which can come in different ways.
Right, definitely. And I think we have to talk about the clitoris a little bit, because that's a part of a woman's body, and most of the nerve endings on the clitoris are externally located. So just, the way our bodies are designed, the sensation is going to feel most intense when the clitoris is stimulated externally as opposed to internally. So that's where most of the magic happens.
Which is is why using an external massager is something that is so prevalent,
Right.
especially with women who are experiencing solo sex or masturbation. They have honed in on the sensations that can stimulate the clitoris externally, and that is also something that you can do with partnered sex as well.
Right. Yeah,
so don't shy
bring in the
away
toys.
from those toys,
Right.
because they can really enhance the experience. They
I
don't
always-
substitute, they
Right.
enhance.
I always tell people, there wouldn't be stores on every other street corner or websites selling all shapes, sizes, and varieties of these devices if an orgasm was that easy for everyone.
That's
so
true.
there is nothing wrong with you if it takes you a little while to get there. That's the other thing I think we need to talk about. On average,
expectations.
it takes women a little bit longer to have an orgasm than it does for men to have an orgasm. So to buy into that Hollywood myth that you should, climax at the same time
Right.
simultaneously, and that if you don't, then sex isn't as good, you're going to feel disappointed, because that's not a
Absolutely.
realistic expectation.
And with most of my clients, I have to explain to them, and it's not so much that I'm explaining, I'm just kind of showing them what's already there and what they already know. This idea that, when you're starting to go into some foreplay, a man is stimulated quite a bit more through that experience. And so by the time that they get to penetration, his female counterpart is lagging behind a little bit. So really sharing and communicating where you are in your arousal phase and for desire, to make sure that you're on the same page, not because you want to reach simultaneous orgasm, but because you want to make sure that the experience isn't ending before either one of you really
It's
wants
about
to.
making sure there's mutual pleasure. Another thing I like to tell my clients is that your orgasm is yours to have or not to have. It's not something that is given to you by
Yes.
another person. I just don't like that
Absolutely.
language. Your orgasm
Really
is
good point.
only yours. So I want to encourage the viewers to take a moment to consider how they maintain ownership over their orgasm. And in large part, that's understanding what feels good to you. You remember in the last episode, we talked about arousal happening in the brain first. So think about what stimulates you cognitively, emotionally, and then, of course, physically.
And if you're one of these people in a couple or experiencing this in past relationships and don't want to get into the pitfall in future relationships, where you find that your partner is really kind of obsessed with your orgasm and obsessed with their own orgasm, go ahead and give us a call. We can help navigate through that. We can help you to learn how to communicate about what your needs are as an individual or in a relationship, because we want to make sure that we're keeping those really unreasonable expectations at bay.
So thanks for joining us today, guys. We want to, as always, send you off with a challenge, something you can think about between now and our next episode. Don't forget to put the hashtag #HotSeat so that you can follow us and read everyone else's answers to their challenge. And today, we want you to think about what is the most satisfying or pleasurable part of a sexual experience. It might be something other than what you think. So take some time, think about that one. And if you're in a relationship, definitely talk to your partner about it. We want to hear all of your reactions. Be sure to leave it in the comments section, and we will touch base next time.
See you later.